Hello Rayclass, what is up? It is Zambash here, and the 3.3.0 Incursion patch notes just dropped, so we are going to go ahead and make a video just like everybody else, running through the patch notes here and seeing what cool stuff there is to find. So we'll get right into it. Pretty long scroll bar, these are quite a doozy, alright. The Incursion Challenge League, we'll probably kind of skip over this, we've been watching the videos and stuff, we really know everything. I'm just skimming with my eyes here to see if there's anything new. No, alright, no new information there. Major new content and features. Added a new strength gem. The first one is Vol Earthquake, which they talked about in the skill post yesterday. Smash the ground, dealing damage in the area and cracking the earth. Your crack will erupt in a powerful aftershock after short delay. And then, the thing that separates it from regular Earthquake is your steps will deal damage around you for a duration, cracking the earth if the previous cracks have erupted. Interesting. I really wish they'd post a video of that one. Maybe they'll still post some new videos of the new skills over the next couple days. That would be very helpful. Vol Blight, we've seen powerful debuff chaos damage over time to enemies around, and it's a really big area. Yeah, 2 layers in a larger area, growing greatly in size each time. Enemies are also hindered. Pretty strong for accelerating your clear on Blight builds. Vol Blade Vortex, we saw it basically, just makes a blade storm that moves around on its own for a certain duration, repeatedly damaging. Added a new Strength Intelligence gem, the Impurity of Fires, Ice, and Lightning. We already saw those. I'm just going to be mostly skipping over stuff that we already know, so this isn't an hour-long video. We already know what the Impurities do. They make you take reduced damage of that element and make nearby enemies have no resistance to that element. Alright. Dexterity Intelligence gem, Charge Traps, we've already seen. Very nice support gem for crit trapper builds. It seems like it'll be really useful. Basically gives you frenzy and power charges when your traps are detonated, and it gives you trap throwing speed per frenzy charge and crit strike per power charge. Crit strike multi, rather. Flamethrower trap, we've seen. Seismic trap, we've seen. Explosive trap, we've seen. Siphoning trap, we've seen. We've seen all the new skills, basically, except the few Vol ones that haven't had videos shown yet, so I'm just going to skip over most of these new skills because we've already seen a million videos and stuff about them, so they're not worth talking about here. Added 31 new unique items, 4 of which were designed by the supporters. Nice, more uniques. 2 new rogue exiles. 22 divination cards. And added new corrupted implicits that can appear on items corrupted by Volors, bringing the total to approximately 176. And many of the old implicits have been buffed or moved to different items, and some have been disabled. Generally, corrupted implicits are now more powerful on average. That's good. Hopefully there aren't quite so many where you're just like meh. Added a new feature, yeah, they give you that always attack without moving, nice little toggle for each skill, that'll be very useful. No more having to hold shift and give yourself carpal tunnel or use auto hotkey, which is technically against the terms of service. Minor new content and features, added 39 new labyrinth enchantments for existing skills and 43 for new skills, nice. Those for existing skills that have undergone significant reworking may not appear anymore due to mechanical changes making them non-functional, I see. Such as enchantments that modify the cooldown of trap skills. Yeah, some of those trap skills no longer have cooldowns. So existing versions of these enchantments will now grant increased damage with that skill at the same value. Oh, that's a, non-confrontational way to do it. Added 6 new dangerous nemesis mods. Ooh, 6 new nemesis mods. Hopefully some of them are actually interesting and actually dangerous. Added 8 new Grandmasters to the Hall of Grandmasters and replaced 2 existing ones. Bunch of 3D art for unique items. Don't really care too much about that. And updated the 2D and 3D art of Tabula Rasa to look less like a sweatshirt your grandmother gave you that was several sizes too large. Nice. Though I think the Tabula look was kind of a community favorite. Updated the appearance of the totems found in the beast areas. Alright. Targets for the Pale Council chains now show up on the minimap. I assume that means regardless of how far you are from them, or maybe you still need to get close to them, because finding some of those are just a major pain. So even if it's only when you're close to them, that'll still be useful and make some of those quests quicker. Ground effects of all types have been updated. This should be clearer to see and better for performance. That's good. Always about those performance updates, because my processor does not handle Path of Exile very well, despite my video card being way overkill for it. Made several skill performance optimizations, most notably Molten Strike's performance at high projectile volumes, and I think they said they were actually changing it in some way to lower the number of projectiles. World and map areas can now have multiple sub-areas. So you can now find a Xana mission in the same map as a lab trial, Abyssal Depths, or Elder Guardian. Nice. Please note that only the most recently open sub-area will stay open indefinitely, and others will eventually expire as if they were any other inactive instance. Alright. And expired sub-areas become inaccessible rather than simply resetting. The item filter now supports sorting by gem levels, stack sizes, and explicit item mods. Cool, I suppose. You can now filter the social panel with Control F, and updated the Lore Weave, Kingmaker, and the Taming vendor recipes to give Shaper and Elder results. Oh, alright. Pointless, but alright. And continue to improve all the things. Character balance. Modifiers to skill duration no longer modify the duration of traps, totems, or mines, but will continue to modify the base durations of skills capped by traps. Okay, that's good. Because one thing I was a little worried about was using like Sunblast or whatever to reduce the duration, and that making it so they also didn't last, or to make them blow up, but that also making it so it doesn't last very long. I think that change makes it so that is not an issue. Ignite now deals 50% of the igniting hits damage per second over 4 seconds, up from 40% per second. Alright. And you can now have up to, jeez, you can now have up to 15 traps that active at a time instead of 3. So that guy's whole Reddit post with the math about not stacking trap throwing speed goes out the window, because now you can have a billion traps up at a time, which means you'll be able to just stack trap throwing speed to really high levels. Skill balance. Supports that cause skills to create traps, totems, or mine will no longer grant the skill the duration tag. Alright. Sure that's applicable in some sort of niche case. Traps. The interaction between trap skills with cooldowns and sources of additional traps thrown, such as multiple traps or cluster traps, has been changed and now work as they did with Vol Lightning Trap previously. Namely, additional traps can only be thrown if the skill has at least one extra cooldown stockpiled. And only as many. Oh, alright. Yeah, we knew about that already. Yeah. As a result of this change to trap cooldowns, the following skills no longer have a cooldown: Fire Trap, Lightning Trap, and Ice Trap. All have no cooldown now. And the trap model has been updated. Alright. Fire Trap is now level 12 gem. We've seen most of the stuff for this. It does more damage, does more burning ground damage. That is also modified by spell damage. And 1 increased fire damage per gem quality. And an added damage effectiveness of 200%. Makes it really strong with Immolate if you're just wanting to spam a bunch of those. Bear Trap we saw in the Ziggy video, so I'm not going to cover that too much. But basically it gives you a nice big fatty slow on anything you hit with it, and makes them take bonus damage from traps for the next little while. 15% increased damage from traps. Oh, and mines, interestingly. Another little damage multiplier you can huck into a mine build if you got room for it. Lightning Trap now deals more consistent damage and higher average damage. One of my ideas for a league starter is a Elementalist Ignite Prolif Lightning Trapper using Stormfire. Now has 1% increased lightning damage per 1% quality and shock quality per 2%. Right? Incredible value. Thanks. Now has 80% increased crit strike chance against shocked enemies, growing as the gem levels up to 118% at gem level 20. Now has a lower mana cost at higher gem levels, up to 20 mana at gem level 20. Nice, so be able to spam it more. And has a base crit chance of 6, and added damage effectiveness of 100, and now fires projectiles with a random rotation, as opposed to targeting an enemy. I had no idea lightning trap projectiles did target enemies. I thought they just fired equally spaced. Interesting. Should still be fine, I think. Ice Trap now deals... Wait, what? They've actually nerfed the damage and increased the mana cost on Ice Trap? Well, nobody will use that. That not having a cooldown does not make it good. The damage is still Garbo, and the AoE is super Garbo. Conversion Trap. Trap duration lowered to 4 seconds, and mana cost has been lowered at all levels for anyone using Conversion Trap. I wonder if that still has a cooldown. Specific skill changes. Many skills have received significant balance or mechanical changes. Alright, one I'm interested in is Ground Slam, because that's another one I'm interested in as a potential league starter. We start with Infernal Blow. They already talked about this one. Yeah, basically now it has a second debuff that it puts on enemies that has a maximum number of stacks. If the thing dies, or the duration runs out, or you reach the maximum number of stats, it explodes, dealing percentage of your base attack damage. 66% per debuff. Which against bosses basically is just 66% extra damage effectiveness per hit, because you're going to be stacking up the hits and popping. The things now has an added damage effectiveness and base damage of 100%. Ooh, wow, they lowered it for that. That's interesting. So it's still not going to compare to a lot of other things for single target, but a little bit of extra interesting explosions, and grants additional melee range as it levels. Interesting. You can reach a little further with your Infernal Blows. Rain of Arrows, we've seen. That was added damage effectiveness, base damage 40%. Yeah, because it works totally differently now. Half of these arrows will target enemies in the area, while the rest will target enemies at set ranges from the center at random. So presumably if there's only one enemy in the area, then half of the arrows will all land on that enemy. Nifty. Says a number of projectiles. I wonder if that scales with level or what. I know it scales with extra projectiles. It said that just adds extra rings and arrows, which is nice. Previously, no projectile scaling on Rain of Arrows. Charge Dash seems really wonky. They showed like a little image of it. I wish they'd showed a full video of it. Now moves a projection of the attacker. Yeah, so it basically moves as you would. It follows your cursor around, deals pulses of damage along the path. Once the skill reaches its maximum number of stages or distance, it deals 150% more base damage with each pulse. Some of these numbers seem pretty big. It could be kind of cool now, I suppose. And the projection's path is limited by a set distance from the player, as well as by the total distance traveled by the projection. Movement speed affects this distance. Now has an added damage effectiveness and base damage of 75 at level 1. Yeah, interesting. That one sounds kind of confusing. We'll have to see that in action. We've seen Incinerate. It doesn't really look amazing still, but it looks better than it was, certainly. Dealing 25% more damage. The angle of the cone increases by up to 300%. When the channeling ends, the final wave is released. That deals 500% more damage with hits and ignites. And the final wave always ignites. Alright, Ground Slam. Previously dealt damage in a cone in front of the attacker based on weapon damage. Now still deals damage in a cone in front of the attacker based on weapon damage, but also deals up to 40% more damage to closer targets at gem level 1 and 49% at level 20, so it's a pretty big more multiplier. Now has a significantly wider area of effect, and now has a damage effectiveness of 100%, up from 90 at level 1. Alright, so the base damage still didn't really get buffed that much. I don't know if the 49% more is going to make it competitive with many things, but it is a little better, I suppose. The not very much of a buff kind of killed my hype for that, but depending on how big the AoE is, it might still be a nice league starter for clear, but I don't think that up close, just 49% more when it still only has a 123 base damage is really going to make it much of a single target killer. Cold Snap we've seen a million times. Various posts and videos about it, we know what it does. Power Siphon we saw recently as well. So we're not really going to talk about that. Double Strike. Now it deals 3 to 5 additional physical damage against bleeding enemies at gem level 1. So it adds flat physical damage against bleeding enemies, that's pretty strong. And slightly nerfed base damage, but that flat more than makes up for it, especially with fast weapons. Now grants additional melee ranges at levels. Alright, so they're adding this additional melee range to a couple of single target melee skills. I wonder if a lot of them will get that as it goes. Nice. Lacerate now has an added damage effectiveness and base damage of 60%. Alright, let's see here. So they nerfed the damage on Lacerate. That sounds questionable. Okay, but it no longer has an attack speed penalty. I guess that kind of makes up for it. Now gains up to +9 area of effect radius at gem level 20, up from +5. Has 25% chance implicit bleed. Oh, and now deals 25% more damage against bleeding enemies. Alright, that sounds quite a bit stronger, actually. Might be worth messing around with. I like Lacerate. Might go retry the Wings of Entropy Lacerator. Arc. We've seen a million things about Arc. It looks very, very strong now, and makes the Shimmeron Arc Miner even more ridiculously strong. Elemental Hit, we've also seen a bunch of stuff about, so I'm not really too worried about that. Yeah, alright, there's nothing new or changed there, it doesn't look like. Following skills have received numerical balance changes. Storm Burst, they talked about yesterday, it just deals more damage. Has better added damage effectiveness and AoE. So they made the projectiles do more damage, but the AoE bursts do less damage. I don't really know if that's good or not. Maybe. Orb of Storms. More damage at level 1, and quite a lot more damage at max. And now has better added damage effectiveness. And increases to cast speed now affect the Orb of Storm strike rate. That's pretty solid. All lightning. Let's see, now deals 20 to 35 lightning damage at gem level 1. Up to... Wow, it got a really big damage buff at top level. Might actually try another ball lightning character after how badly that freaking poison assassin was failing. Now has an added damage effectiveness of 35%. Projectile's base speed is now 33% faster, but it also hits 33% more frequently to compensate, and the base radius has been increased. So buffs all around there. Blade Fall now has 100% increased critical strike chance, and 20% reduced critical strike chance per volley. Oh, alright, so the first volley has increased critical strike chance, and it works down now just like the damage, and has a faster faster base cast time. Earthquake. The base delay between the initial attack and the aftershock is now only at 1 second instead of 1.5 seconds, and the aftershock now deals more damage as the gem levels, dealing 69% more damage at gem level 20, up from 50. Gosh, it still has really bad AoE though. They didn't buff the AoE on it, so I don't know how useful that's going to be. Flame Surge now deals even more damage with hits against burning enemies, up to 88% more at level 20, which it used to be 50% at all ranks, and has bigger damage effectiveness. You could already get really huge damage values on Flame Surge. That's going to be a monster DPSer now. Firestorm. Damage buffed at all levels, not by a ton on Firestorm, but noticeable. Frost Bomb. Damage up significantly at the top end. Now has a 2-second delay before exploding and applies a debuff that lasts 5 seconds and grants minus cold res to affected enemies. Previously it had a longer delay and a shorter debuff duration and a weaker debuff. And now has a bigger added damage effectiveness. So Frost Bomb pretty strong, sounds like. Also Frost... Or did it? Frostbomb didn't have charges, did it? I think it just had like a cooldown. How will that work with new traps, I wonder? Because the trap support has no cooldown, but I wonder if it will just inherit the cooldown of Frostbomb now. Fireball now deals more damage at the top end. I'm thinking of having Fireball traps with Ignite for the single target option for that Lightning Trapper Elementalist I was mentioning. Has a faster cast time, which wouldn't affect traps, but still nice for just fireballers. Now gains 1 extra radius at level 20, has a Much bigger added damage effectiveness. A lot of things getting stronger with Immolate here. And now deals 50% more damage with Ignite at gem level 1 up to 88% more at gem level 20, which is one of the major motivators for why I was wanting to use it as a single target option in that Trapper build. Flame Blast now deals 90% more damage with ailments for each stage. Now has plus 5% chance to ignite for each stage, and now costs 3 mana at gem level 1. Down from 6. Alright, so Flame Blast buffed all around. Magma Orb damage was buffed, and the speed at which the projectile bounces has been significantly increased. Alright, that'll make it so you can't have quite so many out at once, which will help performance a little bit. Spark, same damage at level 1, but a bit buff damage at the top end. Now gains projectile speed per gem level. Ooh, that's pretty nice. And a longer base duration on the projectiles, and higher damage effectiveness. So Spark should also be very strong. Body Swap now is a cast time 0.6 down from 0.8. Alright. Blade Vortex. Faster hit, yeah, so they nerfed the number of stacks to 10, but up the damage and stuff, so it's better at lower stack levels now. And has 10% increased crit strike chance for each blade. That's pretty solid. EK damage buffed at all levels. No. Interesting. Actually nerfed at the top end. That's weird. Not nerfed by enough to matter, but still nerfed. Very weird. Blast Rain now converts all the physical damage to fire. Yeah, they talked about this already. And penetrates 15 fire res at gem level 1 up to 25 at gem level 20. Barrage now has an added damage effectiveness and base damage of 40%. And now fires 4 additional projectiles. So they basically, it's not a big nerf, but it's a move in the right direction for Barrage. They made it fire more projectiles at base and decrease the damage effectiveness, so extra projectiles don't add as much. Freezing Pulse. Yeah, they talked about this one. They buffed the damage on it, made it move more quickly at the start and then decelerate, and make it do 50% damage at its max distance instead of 0%. Here we go. Ice Crash can now be supported by multi-strike. That's interesting. So they're getting rid of the old random cannot be supported by multi-strike nonsense on these gems. Doriani's Touch can now be supported by multi-strike as well. Static Strike now correctly states that the explosion cannot be evaded or dodged. Wither just clarified the description. Essence Drain, more just clarification stuff. Phase Run, faster cast time. Tempest Shield, faster cast time. Flame Dash. When targeting an unwalkable area, it will now target you as close to the edge as it can, rather than not casting. Nice. And now correctly has a random orientation when it targets the caster or has no specific target on Frostwall. Alrighty. All skill changes in general, we pretty much know about. Skim here and see if there's anything new. Nope. Oh, there is some specific numbers here. Damaging rare enemies now grants 1 Vol Soul per 2% life lost with a 1-second cooldown. That's interesting. So if you're super bursting, you actually don't get all the Vol Souls. And damaging unique enemies now generates 3 Vol Souls per 2% life lost with a 1-second cooldown. Alright. Specific skill changes. Vol Lightning Strike we've seen. Oh, they have actually changed some stuff here a little bit, it looks like. Now attaches an orb of lightning to the enemy hits or the ground if it does not hit an enemy that fires lightning projectiles to other nearby enemies or random directions if there are no close enemies to skill's duration. Also damages any enemy that is attached to you. Now has an added damage effectiveness at 80%. Alright, so they nerfed the damage on the Vol Lightning Strike a little bit because it's better. Now lasts 8 seconds at all gem levels, and now requires 20 souls per use and can store 1 use. And prevents you from gaining Vol Souls for 8 seconds. Vol Arc, we've seen what it does. Let's see the numbers on it here though. Requires 25 souls per use, that's not too many. And oh, here we go. Here's the little other buff that Chris was mentioning they might want to put on it. Now causes your arc damage to be lucky for 4 seconds. So that means after you use Vol Arcs, your regular arcs will roll their damage twice and take the higher value whenever you cast it. And now has an added damage effectiveness of 180% And it only has a 4-second prevention of gaining Vol Souls. Interesting. Vol Cold Snap requires a whole lot of Vol Souls. We've already seen it in action, requires 35, and has a 10-second no cooldown there. Vol Detonate Dead would previously chain to other nearby corpses until there are no corpses left. It now places a marker that detonates in the nearest corpse, then after a short delay finds and detonates the next nearest corpse in a large radius. It repeats this until there are no corpses in the large radius, or until it has detonated 22 corpses, with the delay growing slightly every time it repeats. Alright. Seems like it could still be good to pop that and have like a totem casting Unearth on a boss or something on that kind of character. And it has an 8-second Vol Soul, no gain. Where is the Vol Soul cost? It actually listed here? I don't think so. Maybe it wasn't changed. Vol Double Strike, we've seen a bunch. Now, it does what? Creates 2 doubles of your characters for a duration of 8 seconds at all level. Adds melee ranges at levels, just like the base skill. Additional, alright, and flat damage just like the base skill. Requires 30 souls and can store 2 uses. And prevents you from gaining Vol Souls for 6 seconds after use. Vol Rain of Arrows. Now fires a number of arrows across the area, dealing damage based on weapon damage with each one. Alright, so it's the same as the base skill, but it also maims on hit with a 150% increased effective maim. Nice. And it repeats 3 times, so a total of 4 shots from 1 Vol Rain of Arrows. Looks pretty good, and it has a 5-second cooldown on gaining Vol skills. Or Vol Souls. Vol Ground Slam. No longer knocks back enemies. It deals 185 base damage at level 1 up to 226 at gem level 20. That's pretty solid. Now increases stun duration by 200%. Now deals 40% more damage. Alright, scaling up just like the little one. And gains radius, requires 15 souls to use and can store up to 3 uses. Oh, wow. And only prevents you from gaining Vol Souls for 2 seconds after use. So I guess they envision you using your Vol Ground Slam a lot in a Ground Slam build. Vol Righteous Fire, we've seen, removes a big chunk of your life instantly and then deals burning damage per second, based on how much it removed. Vol Flame Blast. Now creates a Flame Blast that shrinks without needing to be channel. Is that supposed to say shrinks? Or is it supposed to say grow? And explodes every 5 stages until it reaches 15 stages, and each subsequent explosion is stronger than the last. I'd have to see that in action. That sounds interesting. 30 Vol Souls and a 6-second no soul. Vol Storm Call. No longer triggers other Vol Storm Calls at the end of its duration. Looks like damage buffed on it, and the frequency of strikes has been adjusted. It can now strike less frequently, but can strike the same target multiple times in a row. Previously, each target had a short cooldown. Oh, interesting. I didn't even know that. Lightning strikes now deal damage in an area, not just to the struck enemy. The period of time between strikes now scales along with the skill's duration. Reducing Vol Storm Call's duration will also shorten the delay between strikes. Nice. And now has a base duration of 6 seconds, and prevents you from gaining Vol Souls for 6 seconds. AoE of the primary strike increased by approximately 33%. Vol Power Siphon. Requires 15 souls per use and can store 2 uses, and has the same things Power Siphon got, and only a 4-second cooldown. That doesn't require many skills. I feel like I'm going to use Vol Power Siphon a lot now in a Power Siphon build. Following skills have received numerical balance changes. Alright. Vol Lightning Trap deals less damage at the top end. Can store 3 uses at 20 souls per use. And now fires projectiles in a random direction. Alright, Vol Spectral Throw does significantly more damage and now fires 4 additional projectiles by default. And requires only 10 souls and can store 3 uses, but does have a 6-second Vol Soul gain prevention. I think that's still going to be a pretty useless skill if I'm being honest. And here goes my voice. Vol Burning Arrow. 30% chance to ignite at gem level 1 and a greater chance to ignite at 20. More damage with Ignite at level 1. Yeah, so Burning Arrow also, like Fireball, has more damage with Ignites. Explosion radius bigger. Now finishes 3 additional targets instead of all of them. 20 souls per use, can store 3 uses, and prevents you from gaining Vol souls for 2 seconds after use. Vol Fireball. 30 souls per use, prevents you from gaining Vol souls for 5 seconds after use. And I'm not going to bother reading all of these. These are all just the new soul costs and cooldown timers. We'll read any things that have other stuff on them. So Vol Immortal Call can no longer be obtained via Corruption, Vol Side Area, or Divination card. How do you get it? What does that even mean? Vol Lightning Warp also can no longer be obtained in any of those ways. How do you obtain these now? Vol Ace Nova, Reeve. Vol Reeve can now store 2 uses. Interesting, I guess. I feel like that's a skill where it doesn't really matter. Vol Breach, 100 souls per use, and prevents you from gaining Vol souls for 40 seconds. What the heck? Gluttony of Elements. Don't really care. Trap Support no longer grants... Ooh, interesting. No longer grants supported skills more trap damage. Does give them a little bit of trap throwing speed, and has a smaller mana cost multiplier. That is interesting. With not having a cooldown, but it also doesn't have a multiplier anymore. So that's kind of a big opportunity cost to turn your skill into a trap. I think they're trying to encourage people to use the native traps rather than trap support. Multi-traps, also cheaper mana multiplier. Trap cooldown support / advanced traps has been renamed. Now grants supported trap skills 15% increased recovery speed. So that's for your big long cooldown traps. Also gives increased skill duration. Also gives increased trap throwing speed. Interesting. And trap and mind damage support has been buffed. Endurance charge on melee stun support now causes supported skills to deal 4% more damage per endurance charge, up from 3. Alright, so that's buffed a little bit from the last version. Chance to ignite / combustion now lowers the fire resistance of enemies ignited by supporting skills. Do 19% at gem level 20, pretty strong. Hypothermia now supports skills that deal damage over time. And causes them to deal... Alright, so this is an extra one for things like Vortex or Cold Snap. They just added on more cold damage over time. Power Charge on crit now gives supported skills deal 4% more damage per power charge. That's pretty solid. Previously, Power Charge on crit is obviously like a really easy solution for generating power charges on a lot of builds, but you never wanted to use it because of the damage cost. But it's not bad now. It's not great. If you're just going for sort of like a standard power chargey build and ended up with 6 power charges, wouldn't be bad. It'd give you 24% more damage along with the charge generation. Deadly Ailments now causes supported skills to deal 45% more damage with ailments at level 1. So buff that in both respects, more damage with ailments and a smaller penalty to damage with hits. Ele Prolif, radius buffed quite a bit. Ignite Prolif, also radius buff, and causes the supported skills to deal 20% more damage with ignites. Right. Ancestral Call can no longer support Val skills. And we've got some passive tree balance. There are 2 primary goals with the passive tree adjustments. Provide more power to ignite builds without providing more power to other burning damage builds. And rebalance trap and mine passives. To that end, most of the reductions to trap and mine passives occur to trap throwing speed and mine placement speed. This is to bring them more closely in line with cast speed. Alright. Trap cooldown recovery was also targeted, as many bread and butter traps no longer have cooldowns, and the traps introduced in this patch are strong enough to warrant their longer cooldowns. Yeah, Shadow Hour's starting area has changed, we kind of saw that. First 2 passes now grant increased generic damage. And increased trap and mine damage. We're just gonna have to look at this in the tree later. Reading all of the individual node changes in the passive tree is really questionable. Mostly just wanted to see if they had any more sort of philosophy stuff discussed here. Not really, so we'll just have to check those out on the tree later. Ascendancy balance. Beacon of Ruin for the Elementalist now has quite a large bigger radius. And now gives 20% more damage with Ignite. That's sort of why I wanted to do the Elementalist for the Ignite Lightning Trapper. Each of the Saboteurs passes that previously granted elemental damage now grant trap and mine damage. Nice. Each of the Saboteur's small passive nodes that give speed now give less speed. Saboteur's Perfect Crime now grants 10% cooldown recovery down from 20, and Chain Reaction 15% cooldown recovery down from 30. Alright. Item balance. Merc and Eternal Lab enchantments that grant additional chains now grant +1 chain for Merce and +2. Alright, so they nerfed it by 1. Based on the new arc changes, undoubtedly. Merc and Eternal Lab Bear Trap enchants that granted increased cooldown recovery speed now grant half as much. Alright. Charge Dash enchantments that added radius now grant +4 down from +6 and +6 down from +9. There may be further changes to existing lab enchants over the coming days related to the broad skill rebalance. Alright. Disabled the Avoid Stun while casting Stormburst enchantment. Disabled Reduced Ball Lightning Projectile Speed enchantment. Really? So you can no longer get the enchantment for reducing ball lightning speed. Interesting. So it looks like with that and the way they increase the projectile speed on the base one, they buffed the damage by quite a bit and buffed the strike rate, I believe, but they increased the projectile speed and disabled the reduced speed enchant. So basically they're trying to encourage you to use ball lightning as a more legitimate clear skill without buffing its already decent single target. Several sources of accuracy on weapons that should have been local to the weapon were global. These have been changed to local. This primarily affects weapons crafted with accuracy on Begin's sharpening wheel, as well as several unique items. Alright. The descriptions of dodge and spell dodge chants have been standardized. Vol vessels found in Vol side areas or by placing a Vol fragment in the map device now drop more items. Nice. The Unearthed skill gem now correctly drops at or above level 10. The Avoiding Flask suffix can no longer appear on flasks with the Seething prefix. Nice. Glowing effect on the Demigod's Triumph unique helmet is now part of the skin and can be transferred with a skin transfer. Detonate strongboxes now detonate more quickly. And the 5-for-1 magic or rare Vander recipe no longer maintains Shaper/Elder item status. Alright. And update the description on that useless item. Unique item balance. Following items have had their global accuracy modifiers replaced with local accuracy modifiers. Only builds that were dual wielding any pair of these will be affected. Alright. Command, Pixator's Vigil, Silvermage, Silverbow, Quill Rain, Dream Feather, Zar's Dilemma, blah, blah, blah. No one cares. Writhing Jar. Worms spawn from the jar are now destroyed when hit. This overrides effects which would otherwise prevent them from dying, such as the one found on South End. They just keep killing Writhing Jar even though it's already dead. Ripworm Blaster in all forms. Stormfire. The increased burning damage for each enemy you have shocked mod now only applies to enemies that were not already shocked. Alright, I guess they wanted to do something like prevent you from spamming ball lightning a million times on a boss while your ignite was going to just jack the damage to infinity. That makes sense. Dietus no longer has the mod enemy chilled by you, taking 100% increased burning damage, and now has 100% increased damage with ignites inflicted on chilled enemies. So they got rid of Dietus's application in Righteous Fire builds. Rapid expansion for Ground Slam, now limited to only 2, and it grants Ground Slam a 35% chance to grant an endurance charge when you stun an enemy, and 50% increased angle. Alright. Malachi's Artifice now correctly has 25% reduced effective ally equilibrium, previously at 40% despite saying 25%. Alright. Primordial Harmony grants your golems increased cooldown recovery speed to compensate for a bug that was fixed. Atziri's Reign now has a limit of 2. Grandest Manor now has a 100% chance to spawn Kadiro in it. That makes sense. Exhaust Inception got its Ignite Prolif Radius buffed. Winter's Bounty. Now changes the skill from generate. Alright, we already know that. Bubonic Trail now has a neat new effect. Cool. Monster Balance. Frankly, I don't really care about Monster Balance. Cast time on the Shifting Darkness Detonate Dead has been lowered, so Behemoth can now detonate dead faster. Yeah, these aren't really worth reading all out. Nobody cares about Monster Balance. Monsters all die instantly anyways. Map Balance. Once you've completed 20 maps with the Elder and his Guardians on your allies without actually defeating any of them, there's a chance for the Elder and his Guardians to disappear and remove the Elder influence from the maps they're on. This will make it difficult to maintain an Elder ring, but will also allow players who aren't capable of defeating the Elder or its Guardians to clear the map from their atlas. Alright. And they made it a lot more easy to get these Shaper Fragments, so you can actually work towards killing Uber Elder. Bit of the Chimera is now more linear, has fewer monsters on average to compensate. Interesting. Crystal Ore is also more linear, and it has a monster spawn slightly reduced to compensate. Fall Temple can no longer roll the Twin mod or have the Deadly Twins Prophecy trigger on it. Nice. I got my butt kicked on a Twin Vault Temple in the last league. And nothing else there. Oh, but the Frandus Manor is on the Atlas again now, nice. Xena's mods, what do we get this league? We get Invasion, Warbands, Anarchy, Fortune Favors the Brave, we already had. Beyond, Domination, Abyss, and Breach. They stuck Breach back on level 8. Quest rewards, Templar and Marauder can now both purchase Onslaught from a vendor. The Witch is now offered Herald of Ash. And the changes to Cold Snap Manager is now available as a quest reward for the Witch and Shadow in Act 2. Alright. PvP balance, no one cares. Bug fixes, we're not going to bother reading all those. So, lots of cool skill changes. I'm a little underwhelmed by the Ground Slam change. I might have to do some Path of Building messing around to see if that's actually worth it. But the AoE and the only requiring 2 jewels right now will make it even better for clear, and Vol Ground Slam seems really, really nice now. But I just don't know if you're still going to be wanting a separate single target option. I don't know if that 49% more damage up close is worth it when it still only had, what, like... Look it up here, I think it still only had like 123 ground or damage. Level 20 here. Yeah, 123 at gem level 20. Not great, but not terrible. Thanks for watching, guys. That's it. I'll definitely be streaming like crazy once the league starts in a couple days, and I'll have some other cool videos coming out soon as well, so stay tuned for those. Leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and make sure you turn on your little notification bell if you want to see when new videos come out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in Rayclast.